The terminal at Atlanta's Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport thrummed with the chaotic pulse of a Saturday afternoon in April 2025. The air was a cacophony of rolling suitcases, hurried footsteps, and garbled announcements echoing off glass and steel. Travelers wove through the concourse like threads in a frantic tapestry, businesspeople in crisp suits barking into phones, families wrestling over stuffed carry-ons, and solo wanderers clutching coffee cups as if they were lifelines. Amid this orchestrated chaos stood Jaden Carter, 18, his lean frame silhouetted against the vast windows overlooking the tarmac. His deep brown eyes, sharp with focus yet softened by a quiet resolve, scanned the departure board. Flight 1742 to Los Angeles, Gate C42 on time. 4.5 hours to his future. Jaden adjusted the strap of his faded backpack, its NASA patch worn from countless nights spent hunched over astrophysics textbooks. He was no ordinary teenager. A finalist in the National Science Decathlon, he was bound for Los Angeles to present his project on detecting gravitational waves from binary black hole merger feet that had earned him one of 12 spots nationwide. The weight of that achievement pressed against his chest, not from doubt, but from the knowledge of what it meant to his father, his community, himself. As a black teenager in a world that often questioned his place, every milestone felt like a hard-won victory. Boarding pass. Dr. Nathan Carter's voice cut through Jaden's thoughts, precise and urgent, the tone of a neurosurgeon accustomed to life-or-death decisions. At 45, Nathan was a towering figure, 6 feet 1 inch and solid, his salt and pepper hair betraying the stress of his high-stakes career. His tailored blazer and meticulous demeanor radiated control, but the worry lines around his eyes told a deeper story, a father haunted by the dangers his son might face beyond the airport's glass walls. Jaden sighed, pulling the pass from his wallet with a practiced motion. "Got it, Dad. Same as the last 3 times you asked." His tone was light, but a faint edge betrayed his impatience, a flicker of the independence he'd cultivated over the past year. His mother, Dr. Elise Carter, a literature professor, had left for a year-long sabbatical in Paris 11 months ago, a 6-week trip that had stretched into an indefinite absence. Jaden had stepped up, juggling his senior year, household chores, and his father's relentless check-ins, all while maintaining a perfect GPA. He'd taught himself to cook gumbo, paid bills online, and kept his dreams of MIT alive, even as his friends chased prom dates and video games. Nathan's shoulders tensed, but he forced a smile, his eyes softening with pride. "Humor me, son. This isn't just any trip. The National Science Decathlon? MIT scouts will be there. This could be your shot." His voice wavered, pride tangled with anxiety. He wasn't just talking about misplaced documents or delayed flights. It was the unspoken reality of being a black man in America, where a single misstep could derail even the best-laid plans. Jaden met his father's gaze, their identical brown eyes locking in a silent understanding. "I've got this, Dad," he said, his voice steady. "The presentation's backed up on my laptop, the cloud, a USB, and emailed to you and Professor Diaz. I'm ready." He softened his tone, sensing Nathan's need for reassurance. "They won't kick me out for being late to the pre-competition dinner." Nathan exhaled, his broad frame relaxing slightly. He placed both hands on Jaden's shoulders, a rare gesture of vulnerability. "I know you do. It's just," he paused, the words catching in his throat. Jaden recognized the struggle the overprotective parent, wrestling with the desire to raise a son who could stand alone. "I'm proud of you, Jaden. Not just for the competition but for everything. Stepping up at home, keeping your focus, being you." The everything hung between them, a shorthand for Elise's absence, the raw ache of her extended stay, the way Jaden had shouldered responsibilities number 18-year-old should bear. He'd learned to balance school and home, to navigate his mother's silence, to carry his father's expectations without complaint. "Thanks, Dad," Jaden said. offering a small smile that accepted the unspoken apology. But I really need to get in line. They're boarding my group. Nathan nodded, then surprised Jaden with a fierce hug, his usual reserve crumbling in a rare public display. Call me when you land, before the competition, and after, win or lose. His voice was thick, betraying the depth of his funnet of failure, but of a world that might not give his son a fair chance. I know the drill, Jaden replied, returning the hug briefly before stepping back. Love you, Dad. I'll knock him dead. He shouldered his backpack and joined the boarding line, a swirl of emotions churning in his chest: irritation at Nathan's hovering, gratitude for its roots in love, and a burning drive to prove himself, not just as Nathan Carter's son, but as Jaden Carter, future astrophysicist. As he shuffled forward, Jaden's thoughts drifted to a moment a year ago, a memory that still stung. At a regional science fair, he'd presented a model of a pulsar, meticulously crafted. A judge, an older man with a clipboard, had listened, then asked, "Did your school provide extra tutoring for this? It's impressive work for someone like you." The pause, the emphasis on someone, had cut deep, a reminder of the assumptions he'd face in Los Angeles and beyond. Jaden had smiled, clarified his self-taught methods, and won first place, but the wound lingered, fueling his resolve to succeed. Lost in thought, Jaden nearly bumped into the passenger ahead of him, a man in his early 50s, impeccably dressed in a tailored charcoal suit that screamed corporate power. Richard Hensley turned sharply, his blue eyes flashing with irritation. "Watch it, kid," he snapped, his tone carrying a subtle venom, as if Jaden's presence was an affront. His manicured hand gestured dismissively, a Rolex glinting under the terminal lights. Jaden straightened to his full 6 feet 1 inch, his voice shifting to a polished register he reserved for such moments. "My apologies, sir. I was distracted." The precision disarmed Hensley, whose eyebrows rose in faint surprise before he offered a tight, insincere smile. "First time flying?" The question, laced with condescension, implied Jaden didn't belong in this space. "Not at all," Jaden replied evenly, holding Hensley's gaze. He'd seen that look before, the recalibration when his eloquence defied expectations. Hensley nodded curtly and turned away, but Jaden caught a flicker of disdain, a spark of trouble to come. The encounter was brief, but it left a chill, a premonition of conflict. The line inched forward, and Jaden felt a gentle tap on his shoulder. He turned to find an elderly woman, her white hair styled in an elegant bob, her practical yet expensive attire suggesting quiet wealth. Her eyes, bright with curiosity, crinkled as she smiled. "I couldn't help overhearing," she said, her voice warm with a faint southern lilt. "Are you traveling alone?" Jaden suppressed a sigh, familiar with the question from well-meaning strangers who often assumed a black teenager traveling solo was cause for concern. But her tone lacked judgment, so he answered politely, "Yes, ma'am. I'm headed to Los Angeles for the National Science Decathlon." He added the explanation preemptively, a shield against assumptions. Her smile widened, transforming her face. "The decathlon? My grandson competed 2 years ago, didn't make the finals, but he's at Georgia Tech now. I'm Claire Gwynn, by the way." She extended a hand, her grip surprisingly firm. "Jaden Carter," he replied, shaking her hand. Her warmth eased the tension in his shoulders, a rare moment of being seen without scrutiny. "Georgia Tech's my backup. I'm hoping for MIT if the scholarship comes through. With the decathlon finals on your resume, I'd say MIT's in the bag," Clara said, gesturing to the lanyard peeking from his pocket. "I recognized the logo. What's your project?" Jaden hesitated, then let his passion take over. "It's on calculating gravitational waves from binary black hole mergers. I built a model to predict their signatures using data from observatories." The words spilled out, his usual caution giving way to enthusiasm. Clara's eyes lit up. "Fascinating. I was at Cape Canaveral for the Apollo 11 launch in '69. My husband, an engineer, worked on the lunar module's guidance system. Back then, a man on the moon was pure fantasy. Now you're chasing black holes and we're planning Mars missions. Her voice took on a wistful note. He'd have loved to hear about your work. Jayden felt a spark of connection, a rare moment of being recognized not as an exception, but as part of a legacy. That's incredible, Mrs. Nguyen. What was it like being there for the launch? Like standing at the edge of history, she said, her gaze distant. The ground shook, the air roared, and for a moment, we all believed anything was possible. Hold on to that feeling, Jayden. It'll carry you far. Her words were a beacon, a promise he'd cling to in the hours ahead. The gate agent's voice crackled over the intercom. First-class passengers for Flight 1742 to Los Angeles, please proceed to the boarding lane. Hensley and Clara moved forward, along with a cluster of business travelers. Perhaps we'll chat more on board, Clara said with a smile. Good luck in the competition, Jayden. Thanks, Mrs. Nguyen, he replied, watching her go. For a moment, optimism flickered. If his seatmates were like Clara, the flight might be bearable. But as he glanced at Hensley, who was berating the gate agent over a minor delay, that hope dimmed, replaced by a knot of unease. Jayden joined the economy boarding group, his mind drifting to the flight ahead. The terminal buzzed around him, a microcosm of the world he navigated daily. A mother corralled two kids, their laughter clashing with a businessman's curt phone call about a missed deal. An elderly couple shared a quiet moment over coffee, while a young woman in a hijab scrolled through X, her screen flashing with posts about a recent airline incident. Jayden's eyes lingered on her phone, a headline catching his attention. Passenger removed from flight after altercation. A chill ran through him, a premonition of the storm awaiting him. As he handed his boarding pass to the agent, Jayden's phone buzzed. A text from Nathan, "Safe flight, son. Call when you land. Proud of you." He smiled, pocketing the phone, and stepped onto the jetway. The cool, metallic air enveloped him, a threshold to the journey ahead, not just to Los Angeles, but toward a future he'd fought to claim. He didn't know that a stranger's hand would soon strike his face, that another would rise to defend him, or that a hidden connection would bind him to a man he'd never met. For now, Jayden Carter was a young man with a dream, a boarding pass, and a determination to prove he belonged. As he crossed into the aircraft, the engine's hum seemed to whisper a challenge. How far will you go to claim your place? The jetway's cool, metallic air gave way to the stale warmth of Flight 1742's cabin as Jayden Carter stepped aboard, his faded NASA backpack slung over one shoulder. The low growl of the engines vibrated through the floor, a pulse that mirrored the knot tightening in his stomach. At 18, Jayden was no stranger to flying, but the prospect of 4.5 hours confined in a metal tube at 36,000 feet stirred unease he fought to suppress. His focus was on Los Angeles, where the National Science Decathlon awaited, his gravitational wave project a key to his MIT dreams. He clutched his boarding pass for seat 16B, steeling himself for the journey ahead. The cabin was a study in stratified discomfort. First class glowed behind a curtain, a realm of plush seats and clinking champagne glasses, where Jayden glimpsed Clara Nguyen settling in with a warm smile that eased his nerves. Premium economy offered a smug extra 6 inches of legroom, its occupants stretching out with entitlement. But Jayden's destination was the economy section, a cramped maze where overhead bins were already stuffed, and passengers jostled like competitors in a zero-sum game. Row 16 was a nightmare realized, the middle seat in a trio flanked by strangers. To the left, by the aisle, sat the man from the gate, Richard Hensley, his charcoal suit pristine, his tablet glowing with spreadsheets. His posture radiated ownership, legs splayed to claim the armrest, his blue eyes flicking with irritation at Jayden's arrival. To the right, by the window, a girl about Jayden's age hunched over a dog-eared novel, her dark hair falling over her olive skin. She glanced up, her amber eyes sparking with curiosity and a hint of amusement. "Excuse me," Jaden said, addressing Hensley, who would need to stand to let him through. Hensley's head snapped up, a flicker of disdain crossing his face, as if Jaden's presence was a personal affront. He sighed theatrically, rising with exaggerated inconvenience. "I'd hoped you'd be elsewhere," he muttered, just loud enough for Jaden to hear, his tone dripping with condescension. Jaden ignored the jab, focusing on squeezing into his seat without brushing against either neighbor, a near impossible task in the tight confines. He settled in, his lanky frame folded awkwardly, and caught the window seat girl watching him. "They really should design these seats for actual humans," she whispered, her voice low but warm, a grin playing at her lips. "Tell me about it," Jaden replied, returning her smile. "I'm Jaden, by the way." "Elena Rivera," she said, turning slightly. Her novel Dune was marked with colorful tabs. "Good book." "Started it recently," Jaden said. "My dad says it was his favorite growing up, so I'm giving it a shot." Their shared interest felt like a lifeline in the tense cabin, a momentary escape from Hensley's looming presence. A sharp throat clearing cut through their exchange. Hensley, reseated, was typing on his tablet with aggressive precision, his jaw tight. "Some of us are trying to work," he said without looking up, his voice clipped. "If you two could keep it down, I'd appreciate it." Elena rolled her eyes dramatically, miming zipping her lips with an exaggerated flourish that made Jaden stifle a laugh. She returned to her book, but flashed him a conspiratorial wink, a silent promise their conversation was paused, not ended. Jaden pulled out his earbuds, planning to lose himself in music until cruising altitude, but the cabin's atmosphere was charged. Across the aisle, a woman in her 30s gripped her armrest, muttering nervously. Behind them, a young boy's giggle cut through the drone, answered by a parent's shush. The passengers, young and old, affluent and modest, were a cross-section of the world, compressed into a space where every interaction felt magnified. As the plane taxied, Jaden's seat vibrated with the engine's growing roar. He glanced at Hensley, who shifted, his elbow nudging Jaden's arm off the shared armrest. "Sorry," Jaden said automatically, though he hadn't caused the contact. Hensley grunted, expanding into the space with a deliberate push. It was a subtle power play, one Jaden recognized from countless encounters, the pressure to shrink, to accommodate those who felt entitled to more. Normally he'd comply instinctively, a survival tactic. But today, buoyed by Clara's warmth and his father's pride, he placed his arm back on the armrest, a quiet act of defiance. Hensley stiffened, his jaw tightening, but said nothing. The small victory sent a thrill through Jaden, though he knew it was a spark that could ignite trouble. The captain's voice crackled over the intercom. "Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is Captain Alvarez. Welcome aboard Delta Flight 1742 to Los Angeles. Flight time is approximately 4 hours and 35 minutes. We're expecting smooth skies, though we may hit turbulence over the Rockies. Flight attendants, prepare for departure." The safety demonstration began, a ritual ignored by most, but Jaden noticed Elena sliding a sketchbook onto her tray table. She scribbled a note and angled it toward him. "This guy's a riot. Bet he's fun at parties." Jaden grinned, borrowing her pen. Total corporate vibe, but angrier. Elena's shoulders shook with silent laughter, earning a sharp glance from Hensley. She wrote again. "I'm in 16A for 4.5 hours. You're 16B? Worst case scenario?" Jaden considered, then wrote, "Plane crash, alien abduction, or he lectures us on finance." Elena's snort was audible, drawing Hensley's full attention. "Is there a problem?" he asked, his voice laced with warning. "Just excited for the flight," Elena replied sweetly, her tone masking defiance. Hensley studied them, his gaze lingering on Jaden with an intensity that felt personal, then returned to his tablet with a huff. The plane surged down the runway, pressing Jaden back into his seat. He gripped the armrests, knuckles whitening, the knot in his stomach tightening. Elena's hand briefly covered his. A quick squeeze of reassurance as the aircraft lifted off. "Scary part's over," she whispered, withdrawing her hand casually. "Now it's just boring for hours." Her kindness, unforced and genuine, warmed Jaden, a counterpoint to Hensley's hostility. He nodded his thanks, relaxing as the plane climbed into the sky. An hour later, the cabin settled into a drowsy rhythm. Window. The cabin of Flight 1742 was a crucible, its recycled air thick with the weight of 2 hours of simmering unease. The hum of the engines at 36,000 feet was a relentless undercurrent, but it was the human tensions, whispers, sidelong glances, the restless shifting of 237 passengers that charged the economy section with a volatile energy. Jaden Carter, 18, sat wedged in the middle seat of row 16. His lean frame coiled with the effort of maintaining his calm. His deep brown eyes, sharp yet shadowed by strain, scanned the cabin, sensing the storm brewing around him. The National Science Decathlon in Los Angeles was his focus, his gravitational wave project a beacon of purpose. But the oppressive presence of the man beside him was a constant assault, testing his resolve. To his left, Richard Hensley, a corporate executive in his 50s, was a man teetering on the edge. His tailored charcoal suit was rumpled, his face flushed with a mix of alcohol and irritation, and his stylus stabbed at his tablet with a rhythm that betrayed his fraying control. The faint, acrid scent of scotch clung to him, a residue from the drink he'd downed earlier, his coffee cup now a crumpled relic on his tray. To Jaden's right, Elena Rivera, 17, gripped her worn copy of Dune, her amber eyes darting between Jaden and Hensley with a sentinel's alertness. Her dark hair fell over her olive skin, but her posture was taut, her earlier warmth now a coiled readiness to act. Across the aisle, a woman in her 30s clutched a rosary, her lips moving in a nervous prayer, her anxiety mirroring the cabin's growing unrest. In row 20, a young boy peeked over his seat, his toy spaceship forgotten, his wide eyes fixed on the adult drama unfolding. But the true catalyst was in row 18, where Kayla, a 20-something with a smartphone, live-streamed the scene on X, her camera trained on row 16. Her feed, buzzing with 50,000 viewers, lit up with hashtags Flight 1742, Justice for Jaden, airplane drama trending across platforms. Comments flooded in. "This guy's trouble. Protect that kid." The digital glare turned the cabin into a global stage, amplifying every word and gesture. Jaden's hands trembled slightly as he scrolled through his presentation notes on his phone. The equations for gravitational wave detection, a fragile anchor to his dreams of MIT. But Hensley's presence was a relentless pressure, his elbow grazing Jaden's side, his muttered complaints a calculated jab. The shared armrest, a silent battlefield, was claimed by Hensley's sprawl, a symbol of his entitlement. Jaden kept his movements small, his body folded to avoid conflict, but the cabin's eyes, some curious, some judgmental, pressed in, making every breath feel like a performance. Elena, sensing Jaden's strain, leaned close, her voice a whisper. "He's itching for a fight. Don't let him get to you." Her concern was a steadying force, her earlier humor now a quiet strength. Jaden nodded, forcing a tight smile, but his pulse quickened, a drumbeat of unease. The weight of being watched, of navigating a space where he felt marked, was a familiar burden, one he'd carried as a black teenager in countless settings. The beverage cart rattled down the aisle and Nia Thompson, a flight attendant with warm brown eyes and a sharp instinct, approached row 16 with a professional smile. Her 11 years of experience had honed her ability to read a cabin, and row 16 was a red flag. She noted Hensley's flushed demeanor, his erratic movements, and the tension radiating from Jaden. "Drinks, folks?" she asked, her tone neutral but her gaze assessing. "Water, please," Jaden said. his voice steady despite the knot in his chest. Same, Elena added, her eyes flicking to Hensley. Another scotch, Hensley barked, not looking up from his tablet. Double this time. Nia's smile held firm, but her tone was resolute. I'm sorry, sir, but we're limiting alcohol to 1 per service on this flight. I can offer a soft drink or coffee. Her words were a calculated boundary, her experience guiding her response to Hensley's volatility. Hensley's head snapped up, his blue eyes narrowing. Is that a new rule? I fly this route weekly, and I've never heard such nonsense. His voice carried, drawing attention from nearby passengers. Kayla's camera swiveled, her live stream capturing the exchange. Comments surged. This guy's a problem. Call him out. It's at the crew's discretion, Nia replied smoothly, her voice a masterclass in calm authority. Based on flight duration and cabin management. Coffee, perhaps? Black. The suggestion was deliberate, steering him toward sobriety. Hensley's jaw tightened, his face reddening. Fine. Coffee. Black. He spat the words, his glare shifting to Jaden as if he were the cause of this indignity. Nia nodded, exchanging a subtle glance with Marcus, her colleague, their silent communication confirming they'd watch row 16 closely. As Nia moved on, Hensley leaned toward Jaden, his voice low and menacing. You think you're special, don't you? Parading around with your little friend, disrupting everyone's peace. The words were a blade, sharp with insinuation, the term friend, laced with a venom that Jaden recognized as more than annoyancy, a targeted jab at his presence. Jaden's heart raced, but he kept his tone even, his voice polished with a precision he'd learned to wield. I'm just trying to get to my competition, sir. No disruption intended. His restraint was a tightrope, each word measured to avoid escalation. Elena, however, was unrestrained. She slammed her book shut, her amber eyes blazing. Disrupting? You've been sighing and shoving into his space since takeoff. If anyone's causing a scene, it's you. Her voice was loud enough to turn heads, and Kayla's live stream zoomed in, her commentary escalating. Oh snap, this girl's not playing. Flight 1742. Hensley's face flushed a deeper crimson. Young lady, you do well to mind your own business. I'm simply suggesting that certain people, his gaze flicked to Jaden, need to know their place on a flight like this. The phrase certain people hung in the air, toxic and unmistakable, silencing nearby rows. Jaden felt a cold weight settle in his stomach, a familiar sting from moments when his worth was questioned. Before he could respond, a passenger across the aisle, a middle-aged man with a crew cut and a polo shirt, leaned forward, his voice dripping with agreement. He's right. Kids these days have no respect. Always pushing boundaries, expecting handouts. His words were a match to kindling, igniting murmurs of assent and dissent among passengers. Elena's eyes narrowed. Handouts? Jaden's a finalist in a national science competition, one of 12 in the country. His project's on gravitational wave stuff you probably can't even spell. What's your excuse for being a jerk? Her retort was a lightning bolt, drawing gasps and stifled laughter. Kayla's live stream surged, comments flooding. She's iconic. Drag him. Hensley's composure cracked, his voice rising. You think you're clever, don't you? When I was your age, we earned our place through merit, not special programs. The accusation was a direct hit, implying Jaden's success was unearned, a product of external favors rather than his own work. Jaden's pulse quickened, adrenaline surging. He wanted to fire back, to dismantle Hensley's logic with the precision of his equations. Instead, he met Hensley's gaze, his voice calm but firm. My place is in Los Angeles, presenting a project I built over 2 years. I earned that, same as anyone. His words were a quiet rebellion, a refusal to be diminished. Elena jumped in, her tone sharp yet conversational. Funny how merit always seemed to favor certain people back then. almost like the system was rigged to keep everyone else out. Her words were a challenge, not just to Hensley but to the broader narrative he clung to. The cabin grew quieter, passengers leaning in, some nodding, others scowling. Kayla's live stream hit 10,000 viewers, her feed a battleground. She's spitting facts. This is too much. Hensley's eyes narrowed, his voice dropping to a dangerous low. You're very young, Mississippi. You'll learn how the real world works. These days, qualified people are passed over because of diversity nonsense. It's unfair, plain and simple. The term was a grenade lobbed to provoke, and it landed with devastating effect. Is that what happened to you? Elena asked, her tone deceptively innocent. Did you get passed over? Is that why you're so mad? Her directness was a masterstroke, cutting through Hensley's facade. Jaden nearly choked, admiration mingling with dread. Hensley's face turned a mottled red, his hand clenching his coffee cup so tightly it creaked. I've had a very successful career, he said stiffly. But I've seen colleagues' talented people overlooked because they didn't check the right boxes. It's unfair. And you kids wouldn't understand. Unfair. Elena shot back, her voice rising. Try centuries of being excluded entirely. That's unfair. Your colleagues might have missed a promotion, but people like Jaden have to fight just to be seen as human. Her words were a rallying cry, drawing soft claps from some passengers, while others muttered disapproval. The crew-cut man shook his head, whispering to his neighbor, "This is what's wrong with the country." Jaden felt the cabin's attention, a spotlight he hadn't sought. He wanted to shrink, but Elena's courage demanded he match it. "She's right," he said quietly, his voice carrying a steely resolve. "The world's complex, and pretending it's just about merit ignores history. A level playing field is the goal, but we're not there yet." His words were measured, but they carried a fire that surprised him. Hensley's expression shifted to fury. "A convenient excuse for those benefiting from the system," he snapped. "Just like it's convenient to play the victim when you're the one causing trouble." The accusation was a distortion, rewriting Jaden's presence as the problem. Before Jaden could respond, a woman in row 15, her glasses perched on her nose, rose slightly. "Maybe we all just need to calm down," she said, her tone conciliatory. "I'm sure this is a misunderstanding. Let's not make it a big deal." Her mediation was well-intentioned, but it backfired. Hensley seized the opening, his voice booming. "Exactly. These kids are blowing everything out of proportion, and everyone's too afraid to call it what it is: disrespect." "Disrespect?" Elena countered, her voice sharp. "You've been bullying him since takeoff, and now you're playing the victim? Classic." The cabin erupted in murmurs, some passengers nodding, others shaking their heads. Kayla's live stream hit 20,000 viewers, her commentary frantic. The whole plane's picking sides. Justice for Jaden. Nia, alerted by the rising voices, appeared beside row 16, her professional demeanor a thin veil over her alarm. "Is everything all right here?" she asked, her eyes flicking between Jaden, Elena, and Hensley. Her presence was a reminder of authority, a potential circuit breaker. Hensley forced a smile, his tone suddenly polite. "Just a lively discussion, nothing more. These young people are passionate." His attempt to downplay was transparent, but it gave Nia little to act on without clear cause. Jaden nodded tightly. "We're fine, thanks." His words were a lie, but he knew engaging further risked painting him as the problem. Elena's jaw clenched, but she sank back into her seat, following his lead. Nia hesitated, her instincts screaming trouble. "Let me know if you need anything," she said, directing the comment to Jaden while holding Hensley's gaze a beat longer. As she moved away, she murmured to Marcus, "Row 16's a powder keg. Keep an eye out." The confrontation left the cabin charged. Passengers whispered, some filming discreetly, others debating in hushed tones. The nervous flyer clutched her rosary tighter, while the boy with the spaceship peeked over his seat, sensing the drama. Kayla's live stream continued, her feed a mirror of societal divides, some praising Jaden and Elena, others defending Hensley as just stressed. The hashtag Flight 1742 trended nationally, a prelude to a larger storm. Jaden closed his eyes, feigning calm, but his mind was a whirlwind. The encounter had shaken him, not just because of Hensley's hostility, but because he'd risen to the bait, engaging in a public argument he'd been taught to avoid. The sting of being reduced to certain people echoed past moments when his worth was questioned, fueling a quiet resolve to stay focused on his competition. Elena nudged him, her voice a whisper. "You okay? That guy's a walking stereotype, but he's not worth your energy." Her concern was a lifeline, grounding him. "I'm good," Jaden lied, forcing a smile. "Just 3 more hours." The lie felt hollow. Hensley's hostility wasn't just persona lit, was a symptom of a world that judged Jaden before he spoke. Hensley sipped his coffee with visible displeasure, his rigid posture a testament to wounded pride. Every word from Jaden, every retort from Elena, seemed to grate on him. He glanced at the crew-cut man, who nodded in silent solidarity, their shared worldview a dangerous spark. 7 rows back, a man with salt and pepper hair watched with quiet intensity, his weathered face unreadable but alert, as if he saw the storm's trajectory. The plane soared westward, a tinderbox poised for ignition, its passengers on the edge of a reckoning. The economy cabin of Flight 1742 was a tinderbox, its stale air crackling with the weight of 3 hours of mounting tensions. The drone of the engines at 36,000 feet was a relentless pulse, but it was the human current's gasps, glares, the restless shifting of 237 passengers that set the space ablaze. Jaden Carter, 18, sat trapped in the middle seat of row 16, his lean frame rigid with the effort of containing his anger. His deep brown eyes, sharp yet shadowed by exhaustion, scanned the cabin, sensing the storm about to break. The National Science Decathlon in Los Angeles was his beacon, his gravitational wave project a lifeline to his MIT dreams. But the man beside him was a live wire, sparking with every glance, threatening to ignite the fragile peace. To his left, Richard Hensley, a corporate executive in his 50s, was a man unraveling. His tailored charcoal suit was creased, his face flushed with a mix of scotch and fury, and his stylus stabbed at his tablet with a violence that betrayed his fractured control. The faint, bitter scent of coffee clung to him, a remnant of the drink he'd grudgingly accepted, its plastic cup now balanced precariously on his tray. To Jaden's right, Elena Rivera, 17, clutched her dog-eared Dune novel, her amber eyes blazing with a mix of concern and defiance. Her dark hair fell over her olive skin, but her posture was coiled, ready to strike at the slightest provocation. Across the aisle, a woman in her 30s gripped a rosary, her prayers a frantic murmur against the cabin's volatile energy. In row 20, a young boy hid behind his seat, his toy spaceship forgotten, his wide eyes fixed on the adult drama unfolding. But the true accelerant was in row 18, where Kayla, a 20-something influencer, live-streamed the scene on X, her smartphone trained on row 16. Her feed, now at 100,000 viewers, buzzed with hashtags Flight 1742, Justice for Jaden, Airplane Racism trending globally. Comments flooded in. "This guy's dangerous. Protect that kid." The digital spotlight turned the cabin into a stage, every gesture amplified for a worldwide audience. Jaden's fingers trembled as he scrolled through his presentation notes on his phone, the equations a fading anchor to his purpose. Hensley's presence was a relentless assault, his elbow jabbing into Jaden's side, his muttered complaints a calculated prod. The shared armrest, a silent battlefield, was claimed by Hensley's sprawl, a symbol of his entitlement. Jaden kept his movements small, his body folded to avoid conflict, but the cabin's eyes, some sympathetic, some hostile, pressed in, making every breath feel like a performance. Elena, sensing Jaden's strain, leaned close, her voice a whisper. He's pushing you on purpose. Don't give him the win. Her words were a lifeline, her earlier fire now a steady strength. Jaden nodded, forcing a tight smile, but his pulse roared, a drumbeat of dread. The weight of being watched, of navigating a space where he felt marked, was a burden he'd carried as a black teenager in countless rooms. The captain's voice crackled over the intercom, slicing through the tension. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Captain Alvarez. We've begun our initial descent into Los Angeles International Airport. Local time is 4:17 p.m. Weather clear, 72 degrees. Flight attendants will conduct a final check. Please return seats to the upright position, stow tray tables and secure all items. We'll touch down in about 30 minutes. The announcement signaled the end was near, but for Jaden, it felt like the ticking of a bomb. Nia Thompson, a flight attendant with warm brown eyes and a sharp instinct, moved down the aisle with her colleague Marcus, their efficiency masking a vigilance born of experience. Nia's presence was a quiet authority, her instincts honed by years of managing volatile cabins. Row 16 was a live grenade, and Hensley's flushed, erratic demeanor was the pin. As she passed, she caught Jaden's gaze, offering a subtle nod that conveyed, "I'm watching." Elena, seizing the moment, pulled out her phone to text her mother. "She's probably freaking out," she whispered to Jaden, her tone light but her eyes wary. Divorced parents always checking in. Jaden managed a faint smile, the normalcy a brief escape. "My dad's probably glued to the flight tracker," he replied. "Hey, we should hang in LA. I could use a guide." "Deal," Elena said, reaching for his phone. "Give me your number." Jaden shifted to retrieve it from his pocket, his movements cautious in the cramped space. As he turned, his elbow brushed Hensley's arm, causing the man's coffee cup balanced precariously on his tabletto tip. A scant splash of dark liquid hit the screen, a trivial spill, but it was the match to Hensley's fuse. "Watch it," Hensley bellowed, his voice a thunderclap that silenced the cabin. He snatched a napkin, scrubbing at his tablet, his face a furnace of rage. "Are you always this clumsy? Or is it just when you're trying to impress your little friend?" The word friend was a venomous jab, dripping with insinuation, and it struck Jaden like a physical blow. Passengers gasped, phones snapping to attention. Kayla's live stream zoomed in, her commentary frantic. "He's losing it. This is bad." Flight 1742. Jaden's heart pounded, heat flooding his face, not shame, but the effort to cage his fury. "It was an accident," he said, his voice steady, polished with a precision he'd learned to wield in tense moments. "I'm sorry." "An accident?" Hensley sneered, rising to loom over Jaden, his 6-foot frame filling the aisle. "Like it's an accident you've been disruptive this entire flight? You and your friend here," he jabbed a finger at Elena, "can't keep quiet or stay in your own space." His words were a twisted narrative, painting Jaden as the aggressor, his tone laced with a contempt that felt deeply personal. Elena sprang to her feet, her novel clattering to the floor. "Are you serious? We've been dodging your tantrums for hours. It's a tiny spill, get over it." Her voice was a whip, cracking through the cabin's silence, drawing nods and murmurs from nearby passengers. Her defiance was a spark, igniting the cabin's tension. Hensley's gaze snapped to her, his expression a storm of contempt. "Your generation's the problem, no respect, no accountability. You think you can act however you want, no consequences." His voice boomed, pulling every eye in the cabin. Kayla's live stream surged to 150,000 viewers, comments exploding. "He's dangerous. Someone help that kid." Jaden felt the cabin's scrutiny, a spotlight he couldn't escape. "Elena, let it go," he said, his voice strained. "We'll grab our bags and leave." He wanted to defuse, to slip out of the trap where he felt most vulnerable, but Elena was unrelenting. "No way," she snapped, her eyes blazing. "He's been targeting you for no reason except," she faltered, the unspoken truth hanging heavy, too raw to voice fully. The cabin held its breath, sensing the unvoiced accusation. "Except what?" Hensley taunted, his voice a roar. "Say it. Make it about something it's not, like everyone does when they've got no real argument." His words were a grenade, shattering the cabin's fragile peace. Passengers leaned in, phones filming, whispers turning to shouts. Kayla's feed trended globally, justice for Jaden surging. Jaden's composure frayed, his pulse a drumbeat drowning out reason. This was the public confrontation he'd always been warned to avoid, where he, as a black teenager, could only lose. "Sir, that's enough." Nia's voice cut in, sharp and commanding, as she appeared beside row 16. "We're at the gate. Passengers are deplaning. Lower your voices now." Hensley turned to her, his face contorted with indignation. "They get special treatment? They cause the problem and I'm told to quiet down." His accusation was a distortion, but before Nia could respond, a man across the aisle, a middle-aged guy with a crew cut and a polo shirt, chimed in. "The kid bumped him on purpose. I saw it. Been causing trouble all flight." His words, delivered with casual certainty, stunned Jaden, a false ally amplifying Hensley's narrative. "That's a lie," Elena shouted, her voice trembling with outrage. "You couldn't have seen that because it didn't happen. He was just getting his phone." Passengers erupted, some yelling, "Leave the kid alone." Others muttering, "He provoked it." Kayla's live stream captured the chaos, her voice breaking. "This is out of control. Flight 1742. Young lady, watch your tone," Hensley warned, his eyes blazing. "And stay out of matters that don't concern you. Defending my friend from your bullying absolutely concerns me." Elena shot back, her voice a clarion call. The word bullying was a spark to gunpowder, and Hensley's control shattered. "Bullying," he bellowed, his voice echoing like a thunderclap. "You've got no argument, so you throw around accusations." The cabin was a cacophony of gasps, shouts, and clicking cameras. Jaden saw it unfolding in slow motion, a spectacle that would define him in strangers' eyes, reducing him to a caricature. "Everyone, lower your voices," Nia ordered, her professional demeanor cracking to reveal steel. "Sir, gather your belongings and exit the aircraft." Her command aimed to separate the parties, but Hensley saw it as an attack. "So they stay and I'm kicked out," he roared, surging to his feet, his movements wild. In the cramped aisle, his hand, whether by intent or reflex, swung toward Jaden, striking his cheek with an open palm. The crack of flesh on flesh was a gunshot, silencing the cabin. Jaden reeled, pain exploding across his face, his vision blurring with shock. His cheek burned, his ears rang, and time froze, the world narrowing to the sting and the weight of every gaze. The pain was sharp, but the humiliation cut deeper, a public wound that seared his pride. Elena gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. "What is wrong with you?" she screamed, lunging toward Hensley, but Jaden grabbed her arm, pulling her back. Passengers erupted, a chorus of shouts. "He hit a kid! Arrest him!" Kayla's live stream surged to 200,000 viewers, her voice breaking. "He just slapped him. Oh my God. Justice for Jaden." Chaos engulfed the cabin. A burly passenger in row 15, Mike, a bearded man in his 40s, vaulted from his seat, roaring, "You don't touch a kid." He lunged at Hensley, fist raised, but his wife grabbed his arm, yelling, "Mike, stop!" Nia and Marcus surged forward, Nia's voice slicing through. "Sir, step back now." The near brawl teetered on the edge, passengers filming, some cheering, others screaming for calm. The rosary-clutching woman's prayers grew frantic, while the boy with the spaceship ducked behind his seat, wide-eyed. Hensley, stunned by his own act, stood frozen, his hand raised, eyes wide with the realization he'd crossed an unforgivable line. I didn't mean," he stammered, but a new voice, clear and resonant, cut through the pandemonium. "Enough." Stefan Novak, 63, rose from seat 23D, 7 rows back. His weathered face was etched with grim resolve, his salt and pepper hair catching the dim light. Despite his modest stature, his presence was a force, an authority forged in a lifetime of survival. His Slovakian accent carried a weight that hushed the cabin. "Sir, stay seated," Marcus called, but Stefan shook his head, his voice unwavering. "I cannot. Not today." He strode to row 16, positioning himself between Jaden and Hensley, his back to the teenager, his eyes locked on the executive. "You will not harm this boy again," he said, each word deliberate, unyielding. The cabin fell silent, passengers transfixed, Kayla's live stream capturing every second. Hensley, thrown off balance, puffed himself up. "This doesn't concern you, old man. Step aside." "It concerns all of us," Stefan replied, his gaze piercing. "When a man like you strikes a child in public, it becomes everyone's concern. I've watched you harass this boy and this young woman, creating conflict, acting like a bully who thinks his targets are powerless." His words were a blade, slicing through Hensley's defenses. Hensley faltered, his indignation crumbling. "You don't understand the situation," he began, but Stefan cut him off, his voice rising with controlled fire. "I understand better than you know," he said. "In my homeland I saw men like you wield power to crush the weak, their authority a mask for cruelty. In war, I fought beside men braver than you'll ever be, men who face death rather than bow to prejudice. You believe your wealth, your status, your appearance give you the right to demand deference, but they don't. They never have. Your cruelty is a choice, and today it has consequences." His speech was a thunderbolt, drawing gasps and murmurs of agreement. Kayla's feet exploded, Stefan the hero trending alongside justice for Jaden. Jaden, still seated, looked up at Stefan's back, his cheek throbbing, his mind a storm of shock and gratitude. This stranger had turned a moment of humiliation into a stand for justice, his words a shield where Jaden's had faltered. Elena's hand gripped Jaden's, her eyes wet with fury and relief, her earlier defiance now a quiet strength. Nia, seizing control, addressed Hensley with icy authority. "Sir, step back immediately. Marcus, we need assistance in row 16. Marcus was on his radio summoning ground staff. Hensley, his bravado shattered, seemed to shrink, the weight of his actions dawning. But panic flickered in his eyes and he bolted, shoving past Stefan toward the aisle, his briefcase clutched like a lifeline. "I'm not staying for this," he shouted, knocking a woman's bag to the floor. Nia blocked his path, her stance unyielding. "Sir, you're not going anywhere," she commanded, her voice steel. A passenger in row 14, a wiry man in his 30s, stood, planting himself in Hensley's way. "Sit down, man," he said, his tone firm. "You're done." Passengers cheered, some shouting, "Don't let him go." Kayla's live stream hit 300,000 viewers. "He's trying to run." Flight 1742. The cabin doors opened and 2 airport police officers appeared, their uniforms a jolt of authority. They navigated the crowded aisle, passengers parting like a tide. "What's the situation?" the lead officer, a woman with a no-nonsense demeanor, asked Nia. "This gentleman," Nia said, indicating Hensley, physically assaulted a minor after a verbal altercation. Multiple witnesses, including myself and my colleague. Her voice was steady, her professionalism a beacon in the chaos. The officer turned to Hensley, now cornered, his face pale, his earlier arrogance gone. "This is ridiculous," Hensley protested, his voice thin. "It was a minor incident, blown out of proportion. I lost my temper, that's all." His plea was feeble, drowned by passenger murmurs of disbelief. "Striking a teenager is not minor," the officer replied, her tone unyielding. "Sir, gather your belongings and come with us. We'll sort this out in the terminal." As Hensley complied, fumbling with his tablet and briefcase, the second officer addressed Jaden. "We'll need a statement from you when you're ready to deplane. Take your time." Jaden nodded, his voice barely audible. "Yes, ma'am." His cheek still burned, the pain a sharp reminder of the public wound he'd endured. He glanced at Stefan, who remained close, a silent guardian. "Thank you, sir," Jaden said, his voice thick with emotion. "I don't know what would have happened without you." Stefan's weathered face softened, his eyes holding a depth of understanding. "You're welcome, young man, though I wish it hadn't been necessary. You showed strength." His words were a quiet affirmation, a counterpoint to the chaos. Elena, gripping Jaden's hand, whispered, "Are you okay? That was insane." Her voice trembled, her fire giving way to concern. Jaden managed a weak smile, the shock still pulsing through him. "Processing," he said, touching his cheek. A faint red mark lingered, stinging his pride as much as his skin. "He's a monster," Elena said, her eyes blazing. "I hope they lock him up." Her outrage was a mirror of Jaden's, but he was too drained to match it. The cabin began to empty, passengers grabbing bags and shuffling toward the exit, many casting glances at Jaden, some with sympathy, others with unease, as if he were a problem they'd rather forget. Nia approached, her professionalism softened by genuine concern. "The police need statements from you, your friend, and the gentleman who intervened," she said, nodding at Stefan. "They're waiting in the terminal. I'll escort you." Her presence was a steadying force, a testament to her ability to lead under pressure. As the officers escorted Hensley toward the exit, his head bowed, his expensive watch glinting incongruously, the cabin buzzed with the aftermath. Kayla's live stream continued, her voice hushed but urgent. "They're taking him away. This kid's a hero for staying calm. Justice for Jaden." Posts flooded X, clips of Stefan's speech and the incident spreading like wildfire, sparking debates about power, privilege, and accountability. The woman with the rosary offered Jaden a tentative smile, while the boy with the spaceship waved shyly, his mother whispering, "You're brave." Stefan lingered near row 16, extending a hand to Jaden, who stood, his legs unsteady. "Stefan Novak," he said, his grip firm, calluses speaking of a lifetime of labor. "A pleasure to meet you, though I wish it were under better circumstances." "Jaden Carter," Jaden replied, shaking his hand. "Thank you again. Not everyone would have done that." The connection felt profound, a spark of something Jaden couldn't yet name but sensed was significant. "More should," Stefan said simply, his eyes hinting at stories untold. He glanced at Elena, who was gathering her backpack, its colorful pins glinting in the cabin light. "You were brave too, young lady. Standing up takes courage." Elena blushed, her defiance softened by the praise. As they prepared to leave the aircraft, Jaden caught his reflection in the darkened window, his face composed, but his eyes betraying the trauma of the moment. The slap wasn't just physical. It was a public stripping of dignity, a wound that would linger. Yet Stefan's stand, Elena's loyalty, and Nia's steady presence were counterweights, proof that not everyone turned away. The cabin emptied, passengers streaming toward the jetway, their murmurs a mix of outrage and relief. Jaden, Elena, and Stefan followed Nia, stepping into the bright fluorescence of the Los Angeles terminal, where police awaited to take their statements. The ordeal of the flight was over, but its echoes were just beginning, a story that would ripple far beyond the confines of the plane. The bright fluorescence of Los Angeles International Airport's terminal was a jarring contrast to the dim, pressurized chaos of Flight 1742's cabin. Jaden Carter, 18, sat on an uncomfortable plastic chair in a quiet corner of the arrivals area, his lean frame slumped, his deep brown eyes staring blankly at the tiled floor. His cheeks still stung, A faint red mark lingering where a stranger's hand had struck him, but the physical pain was a shadow compared to the emotional weight pressing against his chest. The National Science Decathlon loomed tomorrow, his gravitational wave project a beacon of his MIT dreams, but the memory of the flight a public humiliation, a viral spectacle clung to him like damp air. He clutched his phone, its screen dark, dreading the call to his father that would make this real. Beside him, Elena Rivera, 17, fidgeted with the straps of her colorful backpack, her amber eyes darting between Jayden and the bustling terminal. Her dark hair was pulled back, her earlier fire now a simmering concern, but her presence was a steady anchor. Across from them, Stefan Novak, 63, sat with a quiet dignity, his weathered face etched with lines of resolve and something deeper sorrow, perhaps, or regret. His salt and pepper hair caught the harsh light, his Slovakian accent soft but distinct as he spoke to a police officer nearby. The trio, bound by the ordeal they just endured, waited to give their statements, the bureaucratic aftermath of a flight that had become a global story. The terminal buzzed with the usual chaos: reunions, rushed travelers, the clatter of suitcases, but Jayden felt detached, as if the world moved around him while he remained frozen. Travelers glanced their way, some whispering, others snapping discreet photos, their phones a reminder of the X livestream that had exploded online. Hashtags like Flight 1742 and Justice for Jayden trended worldwide, clips of the incident racking up millions of views. Jayden's phone buzzed incessantly, notifications from classmates, news alerts, strangers. "You're so brave. Stay strong." But he couldn't face them yet. The weight of being seen, not as a science prodigy but as a victim, was a new kind of burden. Elena nudged him, her voice low but firm. "You shouldn't have to sit here like this. You're the one who got hurt, and they're treating you like paperwork." Her outrage was a mirror of her defiance on the plane, her loyalty unwavering. She adjusted her backpack, its pins glinting, a feminist fist, a pride flag, a tiny spaceship, each a testament to her fierce spirit. "It's fine," Jayden said, his voice hollow. "They're just doing their job." But the words felt like a lie. He wanted to be at his hotel, reviewing his presentation, not reliving the moment a man's hand had marked his face in front of strangers. The competition was tomorrow, and every minute here was a distraction from his goal. Stefan, finishing his conversation with the officer, turned to Jayden, his eyes gentle but probing. "Is someone meeting you here, young man? Your family, perhaps?" His accent softened the question, but it carried a weight, as if he sensed Jayden's isolation. "No, sir," Jayden replied, rubbing his cheek absent-mindedly. "I'm here for a science competition. My dad's back in Atlanta. There's a shuttle from the organizers waiting somewhere." He glanced at his phone, a string of worried texts from his father glowing on the screen. "Call me when you land. Are you okay?" He sighed, knowing he couldn't delay the call much longer. "Of course," Stefan nodded, his expression somber. "He will be worried. You should call him." His words were simple, but they held an understanding that stirred something in Jayden, a sense that this man saw beyond the surface. Elena stood, stretching her arms. "I'm texting my mom, but we should meet up tomorrow after your competition, Jayden. You need a break, and I know the best taco spot, no tourist traps." Her offer was casual, but her eyes were earnest, a promise of friendship forged in crisis. "That'd be great," Jayden said, a genuine smile breaking through his fatigue. "I'll need something after tomorrow's presentation." The thought of normalcy, a meal, a friend felt like a lifeline. An officer approached, her clipboard in hand. "Mr. Carter, we're ready for your statement now." Jayden stood, his legs heavy, and followed her to a small office off the main terminal. The room was stark, its white walls and metal table amplifying his unease. He sat, recounting the flight's events, the man's hostility, the escalating words, the sudden sting of the slap, his voice steady but distant. as if narrating someone else's story. The officer took notes, her questions precise. Did he say anything specific before the incident? Were there prior physical interactions? Jayden answered carefully, his mind replaying the man's venomous words, the way his hand had moved. Assault on a minor is serious, the officer said, her tone matter of fact. The suspect is detained, and we have enough witness statements to proceed. The decision to press charges is yours. You don't have to decide now, but we'd need to know within 24 hours. She handed him a card with contact information. Call this number when you've made up your mind. Jayden nodded, pocketing the card, the weight of the decision settling over him. Pressing charges meant court appearances, media scrutiny, a public role he hadn't chosen. It could derail his competition, his focus, his carefully plotted path to MIT. But letting it go felt like letting the man walk free, unaccountable for the pain he'd inflicted. The officer escorted him back to the waiting area, where Elena and Stefan sat in quiet conversation. How'd it go? Elena asked, her eyes searching his face. Are they locking that guy up? They're holding him, Jayden said, sitting heavily. I have to decide if I want to press charges. It's a lot. His voice cracked, the exhaustion seeping through. Of course you should press charges, Elena said, her tone emphatic. He assaulted you in front of everyone, with witnesses and video. He can't just walk away from that. Her conviction was fierce, a reflection of her unwavering support. Stefan remained silent, his expression thoughtful, his hands folded in his lap. Jayden turned to him, curious about the older man's perspective. What do you think, Mr. Novak? He asked, genuinely seeking guidance. Stefan considered the question, his eyes distant for a moment before focusing on Jayden. Justice takes many forms, young man. The law is one path, but it's not the only one. You must ask yourself what outcome would heal this wound for you. Is it punishment for that man? Public accountability? Or something deeper like reclaiming your own strength? His words were measured, carrying a wisdom that resonated with Jayden, stirring a question he hadn't yet formed. Before Jayden could respond, his phone buzzed with a text. Shuttle driver at arrivals, gate 5. Running late. He stood, the urgency pulling him back to his purpose. That's my ride. Been waiting almost an hour. I gotta go. My mom's probably circling the lot, Elena said, checking her phone. But let's meet tomorrow, okay? Text me after your competition. I want to hear how you crush it. She pulled him into a quick hug, the gesture conveying more support than words could. I will, Jayden said, returning the hug, grateful for the friendship that had emerged from chaos. As Elena headed toward the exit with a final wave, Jayden turned to Stefan, a sudden reluctance to part from the man who'd stood up for him. Mr. Novak, I don't know how to thank you properly. What you did, it meant everything. Stefan shook his head, a faint smile softening his weathered features. No thanks are needed, Jayden. But if you're willing, perhaps we could meet again while you're here. I'd like to hear about your competition, and maybe I can offer some thoughts on your decision. His tone was gentle, but his eyes held a depth that suggested more than a casual offer. Jayden felt a spark of connection, an instinct that this man's story intertwined with his own in ways he couldn't yet grasp. I'd like that, he said, surprising himself with the sincerity. I'm at the Westside Hotel near UCLA. The competition's tomorrow afternoon. Perfect, Stefan said, extracting a simple business card from his wallet. I know a small restaurant nearby. Nothing fancy, but the food is good. My number's here. The card read Stefan Novak, Master Carpenter, with a phone number and email. Jayden tucked it into his pocket, a tangible link to the man who'd changed the flight's outcome. I'll call you tomorrow, Jayden promised. And thank you again. Not everyone would have done what you did. More should, Stefan replied, his voice quiet but firm. Safe travels to your hotel, Jayden. Good luck with your science. His mention of Jaden's project, remembered from their brief exchange, brought a genuine smile to Jaden's face, the first since the flight. With a final handshake, Jaden shouldered his backpack and navigated the crowded terminal toward Gate 5, where his shuttle driver waited. The bustle of LA's families reuniting, travelers rushing felt surreal, as if he'd stepped out of a nightmare into a world that hadn't paused. His phone buzzed again, a news alert. Viral video of airplane assault sparks outrage. He swiped it away, not ready to face the public narrative. Messages from classmates piled up. Saw the video, you okay? You're a legend. Mingled with notifications from X, where Justice for Jaden trended alongside clips of Stefan's speech. The world was watching, but Jaden felt alone, the decision about charges a weight he carried solo. Outside, the Los Angeles evening was warm, the sky a deepening blue streaked with gold. Jaden boarded the shuttle, sinking into a seat by the window. The driver, a cheerful man in his 50s, glanced back. "Rough flight, kid?" he asked, his tone light. "You could say that," Jaden replied, managing a faint smile. As the shuttle pulled away, the city's sprawl unfolded, highways, palm trees, the distant glow of downtown. Jaden's thoughts oscillated between the competition, the decision about charges, and Stefan's enigmatic presence. The older man's words, "What outcome would heal this wound?" echoed, a challenge to look beyond punishment to something deeper. In a quiet moment, Jaden's mind drifted to his grandfather, Samuel Brooks, a man he'd never met but whose stories his father sometimes shared. Samuel had been a Vietnam veteran, a man of quiet strength who'd faced prejudice with dignity, never letting it define him. Jaden wondered what Samuel would have done in his place, whether he'd have pressed charges or chosen another path. The thought was fleeting, but it stirred a sense of legacy, a connection to resilience that steadied him. Unbeknownst to Jaden, Stefan Novak sat in a modest rental car in the airport parking structure, his hands resting on the steering wheel, his eyes fixed on a worn black and white photograph. Two young men in military uniforms grinned at the camera, arms slung around each other, their smiles masking the fear of war. One was a younger Stefan, his features unmistakable. The other, a black man with a broad grin and watchful eyes, was Samuel Brooks. On the back, faded handwriting read, "Stefan and Sam, Vietnam, 1975. Stefan traced the image with a weathered finger, his expression softening into grief and resolve. "I found him, Sam," he murmured. "Your grandson, just as I promised." The coincidence, if it was one, felt like fate. Stefan had come to Los Angeles with a terminal diagnosis, 4 to 6 months, and a single purpose: to find Samuel's family and make amends for a silence kept for 45 years, a choice that had protected himself at Samuel's expense. Jaden didn't know, couldn't know, that Stefan had been Samuel's comrade, that their paths crossing on this flight was a closing of a circle begun in a war-torn jungle. Stefan started the car, the city lights shimmering in the dusk, wondering how much of the truth Jaden was ready to hear, whether forgiveness for Samuel, for himself, was possible after so many years. Jaden, in the shuttle, gazed out at the passing city, unaware of the history linking him to Stefan. The incident on Flight 1742 was more than a moment of violence. It was a crucible, forging his resolve to fight for his place in a world that often pushed back. The decision about charges, the competition, the meeting with Stefan all loomed ahead, pieces of a puzzle he'd yet to solve. But as the shuttle wound through the streets, Jaden felt a quiet strength, a certainty that this day, with all its pain and unexpected allies, had set something in motion, a story whose full meaning would unfold in time. Alright folks, buckle up, because the saga of Flight 1742 isn't just a wild airplane ride. It's a mirror to the chaos we navigate every day in 2025. Picture this: you're stuck in a metal tube at 36,000 feet, or maybe just your office cubicle, and someone's throwing shade like they're auditioning for Grumpy Cat, the movie. Sound familiar? Jaden Carter's story facing down a bully with a Rolex and a bad attitude ain't just drama. It's a masterclass in keeping your cool when the world's screaming, "Lose it!" And let's be real. Whether it's a cranky coworker, a keyboard warrior on X, or that one uncle at Thanksgiving who's still mad about the election, we've all met a Richard Hensley. The lesson? Don't let the hen skies of the world dim your shine. Stand tall like Jaden. Lean on your Alenus, and maybe, just maybe, find a Stefan to have your back. Here's the kicker. This story isn't stuck in the clouds. It's about the real-world hustle of confronting bias with grace. Like Jaden dodging microaggressions sharper than a paper cut. It's about allyship. Elena didn't just sit there. She was ready to throw her book at injustice, and probably would've if Jaden hadn't stopped her. And Stefan? He's proof that courage doesn't need a cape, just a willingness to stand up when it counts. In our world of viral outrage and hashtag wars, Flight 1742 reminds us to be the voice that cuts through the noise, not adds to it. So, next time you're in a tense meeting or scrolling through X's latest dumpster fire, channel Jaden's poise, Elena's fire, or Stefan's wisdom, and maybe skip the coffee-throwing tantrums, okay? Now let's get interactive. What would you have done in Jaden's shoes? Press charges or let it go for your own peace? Ever had an Elena or Stefan step up for you when things got rough? Drop your stories in the comments and tell us where you're reading from. LA, Atlanta, or maybe a spaceship orbiting Mars. We're all ears, or rather eyes. And hey, don't fly away just yet. Subscribe to our channel for more stories that hit you in the feels and make you think, laugh, and maybe even cheer like those passengers when Hensley got marched off. Click that button, join the crew, and let's keep soaring through tales that matter.